Hey guys, it's Kevin from Spiritus Systems, and today I have a special guest, MJ from 20th Special Forces Group, and today we're going to find out what it takes to become a Green Beret.
Bravo, come on. Oh. What are you doing?
All right, MJ, can you just go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a brief introduction?
What's up, guys? I'm MJ. I'm a 3rd Battalion, 20th Special Forces Group. We're down in Florida. I'm an 18 Echo on the team. I'm also a JTAC and a sniper qualified personnel as well. Whenever you hear someone talk about Special Forces, I know Hollywood likes to change it up a little bit, but Special Forces is very specifically Green Berets. You have many other soft elements within Special Operations, such as MARSOC, SEALs, and PJs, but Special Forces are in particular Green Berets. And the mission of a Green Beret usually is unconventional warfare, if we can really break it down and simplify it. And unconventional warfare is the means of coercing, disrupting, and eventually overthrowing tyrannical governments or occupying forces, working by, with, and through a partner force or guerrilla force using guerrilla tactics. We also have 9 other core missions, such as direct action, counterinsurgency, foreign internal defense, and special reconnaissance. Those all kind of fall under the umbrella of Special Forces.
So first we want to start with, what are some of the basic requirements to become a Green Beret? What are the age requirements? What are the physical requirements? Education requirements? What's the baseline that people need to know with that?
Yeah, so baseline requirements as far as trying out need to be at least 20 years of age, because by the time you graduate the Q course, you have to be over 21. As far as how old you can be, up to 35 is waiverable. Usually over that, we're gonna have to work our magic. But depending on your physical standout, as long as you have a high school diploma or a GED, that's usually as far as education purposes. Of course, it's always good if you got college as well. But that's the minimum requirements for getting an 18 X-ray contract to become a Special Forces operator.
We're talking about enlisted,
yes,
right here.
Enlisted right here, yeah. Officer, for officer, you have to be an O2 promotable, so first lieutenant promotable in order to try out.
All right, so what are some of the physical requirements? We all know it's a very physical job, but what are some of the basic requirements you need to meet to try out for Special Forces?
Yeah, so what we look for with our process usually is an 80% minimum in all your PT standards. So 80% in your push-ups, in your run, and in your sit-ups. As far as the 80% numbers with your run, we're looking like anything below a 13 flat. 13 flat is scoring 100%. You have your minimums, but remember, when you're trying out for Special Forces, you're trying to max everything out. Okay, we're not looking for the minimum, we're looking for the maximum. So that's the basic physical standards. Muscle endurance, man, that's the big key one right there. Don't try to PR at the gym anymore. You want to really do explosive workouts where you're fatiguing your muscles and you're also taking care of your joints. You don't want to get to the Q course or get to selection and be a physical stud, but then have a blowout, tear a muscle or anything like that. I've seen it happen multiple times, and that's kind of what screws dudes over. So make sure you're taking care of your body. Make sure that you're doing a lot of physical therapy. People always joke about it, but yoga is an awesome key, an awesome tool to help make sure that you're in there for the long run. It's a marathon, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So take care of your body accordingly.
So a lot of stuff like rucking is a big component of it.
As far as rucking goes, you're going to be having that ruck on your back the entire process of selection and majority of the Q course as well. So getting used to it being on your back, doing regular movements with that weight on is super important. As far as times, for your 12-mile ruck, we all follow the standard Army timeline as far as, hey, 12 miles under 3 hours. If you're doing an 8-miler, it's got to be under 2 hours, 6-miler under an hour. Those are the baseline numbers there. Of course, once again, it's a selection process and it's a job interview. So you want to be well under those times. With running, you want to be able to do your 5-miler in under 40 minutes. And Also be aware that when you're training for this, you want to be doing it all on soft sand trails, dirt, everything like that, because you're not going to be doing any of this testing on pavement. It's all going to be in the backwoods of, North Carolina. So
Nice.
yeah.
So 20th group has its own, it's like a pre-selection process for your group. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 20th Group, and specifically 3rd Battalion, what we do is we hold an event called an SFRE, a Special Forces Recruitment Evaluation. It's open to anyone that wants to come out as long as you're over 18 years of age. Civilians can come, other branches can come, as long as you get approved from your chain of command. But basically, it's a weekend long, so it's just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it is a compacted selection process that we run. We have you go through classes, so you have to do a PT test, make sure you pass that physical gate. You'll do an unknown distance run and an unknown distance ruck. What you'll also do is an obstacle course, and you will do team events. Team events being the real gauntlet for that event. We try to take a lot of elements from selection and put it in there in a small period of time because it kind of gives people a better idea of what to expect when they go. It also gives us a better idea of who you are as a person and as an individual coming into this process, and if we want to send you to selection, if you're a viable candidate. We do classes, we cover land nav, we cover knots and lashings. For those who have been to selection, you'll understand how important knowing that is. And then we also board you at the end of it. So we go through your physical stats and we kind of break down who you are and why you want to be here. If they are, susceptible enough to pass that SFRE, that initial introduction, they will then go to the SFCP, which is a candidate prep. That it would be the next month, and we cover mostly all land navigation. Land navigation being a real big selector during selection. A lot of dudes just, when they get out in the woods, they get scared and they get lost. So the more you're able to do it at longer distances, the better. So we kind of put you out in the woods, put a ruck on your back, and have you traverse a long distances. You'll do the physical gates again, unknown distance ruck, unknown distance run. And as long as we understand that you're ready to go, we will send you to selection. Right now, selection has about an 85% fail rate, but the guys that we send have about an 80% pass rate. So a lot higher potential passing because you have an idea going into selection of what to expect. Whereas most guys that go off the streets from active duty, they kind of go in and it's kind of a slap to the face as far as, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? So that's how we run it.
So how often do you do these SFREs, and how can people find more information about it?
Yeah, so we run an SFRE every other month. We usually kind of have a break in the summer months because it's super hot in Florida, but every other month we run one, and every other month we run a SFCP as well. You can find out the information on our Instagram page, 3rd Battalion 20 Special Forces Group, and we have a link in there. You can also find it on Guard SF website. You'll fill out an application and you'll send it to us, and we'll send you all the viable information you need and get you started on the process.
So that's pretty interesting. You say a person who's a civilian can just come and try out for the selection process.
Yeah, absolutely. We usually have a high number of civilians that come out, and how we set it up is depending on your performance. If you show out and you crush it, and we like who you are as an individual and as a person, and you exemplify the attributes that we're looking for in a SOF operator, we will have a recruiter right there ready to sign you an 18X contract as soon as you finish boarding at the SFRE. And from there, we kind of work you through the process, get you through basic training, AIT, and then airborne school. From there, you'll then go over to Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty now, and you will then be part of the X-ray pipeline there, getting ready for the prep course, SOP-C, and then going to selection. So that's how we run our program.
Okay, so you mentioned some attributes that you're looking for. What are some of those attributes that you're looking for in a candidate?
Yeah, so as far as attributes go, once you get to an SF team, you have a lot of personal responsibility on your shoulders. It's 12 guys max. And a lot of times you don't even deploy with a full team. Mm-hmm. So you as the junior guy coming onto a team, they don't care if you're the new guy on the team. You're going to have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. Right. So we're looking for guys that are adaptable, 100%, can take any situation and make it work in their favor. Mental fortitude, that's a big one. And then, of course, professionalism, personal responsibility being huge, and integrity. Green Beret teams, we work in the gray a lot, and you're having to do things and operate in certain environments that having a person with good integrity and a good moral compass, very important. So, and of course, the cliche, be a team player. That's huge.
The physical requirement is not the only thing that you're looking for this type of job.
Exactly. Physical requirements expected.
Right.
Being able to check the block on all the physical requirements as far as PT and rucks, we look at that and it's like, cool, like we expect you to show up and be able to crush that. But as far as who you are and how you operate in stressful environments, that's what we look at more as far as being a Green Beret.
You mentioned some cross-branch stuff. What does a person have to know who's maybe they're in a different branch of the military and they're looking to come into SF at some point?
Yeah, so for us, we actually get a lot of Navy personnel that come in. We get Marines, we get Air Force. As long as you are within a year of your ETS date, we will work with your command to get you sent to selection. Either your command can pay for it and send you out, or we'll just work with getting you an early release and get you put under our books and we'll send you ourselves. Understanding though, if you're well outside that year timeline, it's gonna be harder to work with that, but you're more welcome to come out to as many training opportunities as you want, and we will continue to keep that relationship with you until you get closer to that ETS date. For Marines, if you swap over, you do not have to go through basic training again. Unfortunately for Navy and Air Force, you will have to go through Army basic training. It's just the way it is, man. For any guys that are coming from other soft units, we've had Air Force TAC-Ps, Air Force CCTs come out. We've had MARSOC guys. They also can skip through that process and just go straight to selection.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's really cool that you guys will take some civilians or whoever can pass this pre-selection assessment and then take them to the next level. Can you describe some of the things that happen at that next level?
Yeah, so next would be selection itself. Special Forces Assessment and Selection, SFAS. It is a 3-week-long process, and it is a gauntlet in a lot of different ways. You'll show up day one, you'll have your bags all in the truck, they'll dump them, and you'll have the NCOIC or the NCO in charge will then present himself to the class and basically give you the rules of what's going to happen. The lack of instruction is a big thing with selection. It's problem solving, figure it out on your own. You take all directives from the whiteboard. Everyone that's seen any documentaries on selection, they understand what the whiteboard is, and it is a real thing. So you don't really have a whole lot of interaction with the cadre itself. They give you the brief instruction, and then everything else is taken from the whiteboard. So it's all figuring it out on your own. To me, that was actually the worst part of selection, was constantly wondering and figuring out what is going on and how am I doing, how's my performance? Because you might do something, and in your mind, you might mess it up, and the only thing that cadre will do is look at you and say, continue to train candidate. So, you got to figure it out on your own. Don't self-select. That's the biggest problem people have. As they'll go through something, think that they completely botch it, they're not getting affirmation from the cadre, so they immediately are like, oh great, I'm screwed, it's over, and then they self-select and get out. Go through the process. I remember night one, they said adhere to the whiteboard. We look at it, gave us a time hack of 6 in the morning. Be ready in formation, with X, Y, and Z needed. And all of a sudden we get woken up at 3 a.m. by the guy who was on fire watch saying, holy crap, the whiteboard changed. We walk out there and it's show up 5 minutes to formation, ready to go. And then we went and did a run. Stuff like that happens all the time in selection. Make sure you're constantly moving, constantly on your toes, because it changes real fast. As far as selection goes, you got your 3 weeks. First week is gate week. That is where it's more on the individual. You go through your physical gates, unknown distance runs, unknown distance rucks. You do the obstacle course, the nasty Nick, and then you do a bunch of different physical gates. I believe they got rid of the log and rifle PT. They filled it in with other stuff. You'll just have to find out when you get there. And then the next week after that is land nav week. You do a lot of classes. If you're not super brushed up on land nav, they do kind of do classes and break it down for you a little bit. That's easy to understand. But like I said earlier, some guys just get in the woods in the dark and they just kind of lose their bearings. So full week of land nav, that drops a lot of people. And then the last week is team week, which is, to me, team week is the real, selection process. That's where a lot of the instructors kind of get their idea of who the candidates are. Drops a lot of people, but it's it's a process for sure. But yeah, that's kind of the breakdown of how selection works.
And that's just a selection before you go to the Q course, correct?
Correct. So selection is what basically signifies who's good enough and who's capable to then start the Q course process. Q course is always changing, it's always fluctuating as far as timelines go. When I went through, it was 2 years long. I think right now it's about 1.5 years, and of course it's subject to change again. But if you pass selection, that does not mean that you are ready to get your Green Beret by any means. When I went through, I remember I had that ideology. My brain was like, "Oh hell yeah, I got selected, and I'm good." It's just school. Q course is just school basically. And I had a rude awakening when I got there. Q course, it was a selector in itself as well. You have a lot of guys that you went through selection with that passed that did not make it through the Q course. But it's a great time, You learn guerrilla warfare tactics. You do SUT, small unit tactics, which is basically our form of Ranger school. We follow the Ranger handbook, but we run it a little differently. And then you have your MOS training. So each MOS on a team is different, and you have to then, go through the school process of that, which we can break that down, later.
Yeah, we should.
And then once you're, MOSQ and you're ready to go there, then you go into Robin Sage. A lot of rumors, of course, around Robin Sage. And I will say with Robin Sage, the less you know, the better. It is a great process. It is one of the best training environments I've ever done or ever been in. And it was awesome. But you learn a lot, and it's an entire crazy scenario built around unconventional warfare. 4 weeks long, and it is intense, but it's a fun time. And you also have SEER School, of course, as well. That's earlier in the process, which is an interesting experience.
So now that you made it through Q course, what is the next step in the process?
Next step in the process, so specifically for 20th Group and 19th Group as well, the two guard units, you're in contact with your group leadership pretty much throughout the entire process of the Q course. I lucked out, and I got in contact with my team sergeant while I was still in language. That's not always the case, but usually you have an idea of who you're going to be working with and where you're going to be going with Guard SF. Now with the active duty units, from what I've heard and from buddies of mine that are within the different groups, it's kind of just like you go through and then you know what group you're going to. You find out about halfway through the Q course, and then you just get there and figure it out from there. Now for us, we try to take care of our guys throughout their entire process through the Q course. So you finished, you graduate, you get your Green Beret, you finish language school as well, which is about 6 months. You will then go to your group and your company, and you'll get on your team. How the team works is it's pretty much needs of who needs what MOS. So depending on what MOS you are, you'll fill into whatever team needs that. The different teams that we have in each group, you have your Halo teams, you've got your mountain teams, you've got your dive teams, and then you have like your ruck teams and your DA teams and your mobility teams. It kind of fluctuates depending on the company.
So you get on a dive team. Does that mean you're never going to Halo?
No, not exactly. They used to have free fall for all, which was as soon as you finished the Q course in language, you'd go to Halo school, which was great. Unfortunately, they cut that because, there were dudes that were waiting on Halo teams that hadn't gone to Halo school yet, and the schools are just so backlogged. But now it's mandatory that you're on a Halo team, you're going to Halo school, and then there are slots available for guys that are not on Halo teams to go. Just be aware that you're not going to have priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So just because you're on a different team doesn't necessarily mean you will never do like what a mountain team does or some of the training that they have.
Exactly. So when we, how they split the teams as far as like Halo team, mountain team, and dive team, those are means of infiltration. So those are that team-specific infiltration methods. So they will be more specified to those schools and stuff like that. But just because you're on a Halo team doesn't mean you can't go to mountain school.
Right.
Those are available to you, but just be aware that the mountain team will have first priority of that.
Yes.
Same thing with dive school. They open up dive school for anyone that wants to go. But that's kind of how they set it up. Depending on what each team's means of infiltration is, they get prioritization. But those schools are still open up to anyone. It doesn't matter what team you're on.
Very cool. So let's get into some of the specific job titles there are on the team. So what are the specific job descriptions?
Yeah, so on your team, you have about 12 guys maximum. You have your 18 Alpha, which is your captain. He's your team leader, and his time on the team is usually the shortest. A captain will be on a team for about 2 years. Good thing with Guard SF, though, is usually a captain's time can be a little bit longer. So a captain can stay on there for closer to 3 years if they want to. Team life is the best life, so as a captain, you probably want to stay on the team as long as you possibly can. Then you have your 18 Bravos. You have 2 of each MOS besides the captain.
And what is the 18 Bravo?
18 Bravo is the weapons sergeant, so anything all-encompassing weapons, the 18 Bravo is the expert on. Granted, every person on the team is expected to be a shooter. Basically, an 18 Bravo can be an armorer. They should be able to fix and maintain all the team's weapons, and also understand all the foreign weapons that you're going to be using, depending on what environment you're going to. Right. When you're in the Bravo course, you're going to touch pretty much every weapon you can possibly think of that has ever been created. You will get your hands on it, and you will get to shoot it as an 18 Bravo. Next, you have your 18 Charlie, which is your engineer sergeant, demolitions expert, blowing things up, but also building things. Very important to understand structures and how to set things up. So the 18 Charlie, usually when you get to an outpost, they're the ones that are going to go through and see what needs to be fixed, what needs to be maintained, and what they can build in order to better the team's environment.
How to improve your living situation.
Exactly. Always improving your foxhole, right? Next, you have your 18 Deltas, which your 18 Delta is the medic on the team. The 18 Delta's pipeline throughout the Q course is longer than most. Most MOSs, it's about 2 years. The 18 Delta is about 3. You go through SOCM, which is Special Operations Combat Medic course, and then you also have the 18 Delta course as well. I like to always reference them as the voodoo witch doctors because their level of understanding is huge, and they know a lot of things when it comes to medicine. You have your 18 Deltas on the teams, and then next you have your 18 Echo. Which is what I am, which is a communications sergeant. So anything dealing with comms, it's not just radios. It's throughout the Echo course, there's a portion where you build a computer from nothing. You understand networking. You understand how to the ionosphere, satellites, all sorts of stuff. But you get to do a lot of cool things. I remember in the Echo course, we ended up making comms with on the other side of the states, using nothing but a knife and a tree and some wire. So understanding how building antennas work and how to how they function, that's your job as an 18 Echo. It's a great gig. And then also you have your specialty schools outside of that.
Yeah, and one of those specialties that you have is being a JTAC, correct?
Yes.
And can you describe some of that to us?
Yeah. Anyone on the team can go to SOTAC. They prioritize Echoes just because, you're using a radio more than anyone else, but any MOS can go. 18 Bravos is a great other MOS to be a JTAC. Charlies, the only MOS that they kind of dissuade from being JTACs are the Deltas, mostly because Delta needs to prioritize rendering aid rather than calling CAS. So so anyone can go and become a JTAC if they want to on the team, and that is being an expert in all things close air support. So calling in airstrikes, utilizing ISR, and having basically controlling the air assets that are in your area. So
nice. And we did do a kit shakedown with MJ on his JTAC and 18 Echo kit in another video, and you can find that in the description box below. So that's one specialty on the team. What are some other specialties that guys could do?
For example, the mountain teams, you have expert mountain schools you can go to. Snipers, so we've got different sniper course levels that you can go to. So if you qualify in that, you can become one of the snipers on the team. You got master breacher courses, so usually that's the 18 Charlies that go to that, but once again, anyone on the team can really go and become a master breacher. your team always will go through our SFRE courses, which is Special Forces Advanced Urban Combat. And that's just CQB, man. That's kicking down doors and understanding how to make breach charges and how to do all that with your team.
Right. So now that we talked about some of the team job descriptions and some of the specialties that you can do, can you break down what day-to-day life is like for a Green Beret?
Yeah. So within 20th Group and National Guard units, it's definitely the tempo changes constantly. There's a lot of opportunities within Guard SF to be on full-time orders if you want to, unless you really want to prioritize your civilian career. Most guys on a team have jobs within the realm that kind of work with the team. Day-to-day life, usually you have your drill schedule with the team. Usually our drills last about a week and they're annually. And what we do is you set up and you kind of discuss what training we have on the schedule. The team can build their own training schedule. So just because the company's doing one thing doesn't mean the team is going to be doing the same thing as all the other teams are doing. So it's always depending on funding, but the team will build their schedule for the year, and a mountain team might go spend their drill in Vail, out there doing skiing and doing cross country, mountain tactics. The dive team might set up their training to where they're going to the Bahamas and doing a bunch of dive operations. Same thing with the Halo team. The Halo team might go out to Arizona and just be doing jumps. So it's kind of dependent on that, but you have your team rooms, and each individual team is like a family. You kind of just hunker down with them, and you don't really deal with a lot of the other teams as much.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works on that end.
All right, cool. So that's some stateside daily life stuff. What about when you're deployed, or how often do you deploy?
So for SF, your company has a deployment schedule. Usually it's about 2 years in between each deployment. That's kind of how we try to do, time back at home. But the good thing about Guard SF is it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. My example, for one thing, I was able to go on one deployment and come back and immediately hop on another deployment with a different team.
Right.
So you have that ability with 20th Group and 19th Group. But on deployment, team life, like I said, it's the best life. You're there on whatever outpost you're at with your team. Usually you meet up in the mornings, do your team meeting, figure out what needs to be done, what operations we're going to go do, and then what preparations need to be done. So you'll do your job as whatever MOS you are on the team, whether it's setting radios up as the Echo, getting everything set up for that operation coming up. Charlie's getting all the breaches set up, making sure everyone's got the supply that they need. Bravo's making sure weapons are good. So it's you go through your daily functions like that. Of course, you have your team gym time. So you got the gym. Everyone goes out, busts out a workout. We might go watch a movie later that night together as a team. Just hang out. But you become a family on deployment because everything you're doing is within a very confined space, and you're working together. That's why it's good to have personalities that kind of match with a team.
Yep.
Because you're going to be living and pissing in the same hole pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's a good time though. Deployments are awesome.
All right, thanks MJ for coming on here and telling us a little bit about what it takes to become a Green Beret and some of the daily life of a Green Beret. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how they can find information on 20th Group?
Yeah, so you can come follow our Instagram page. It's 3_20th SFG, all one word. We also have a Reddit page, and we have a Twitter page, or X, whatever it's called now. And on there, we do have a link that can get you to the application process as well. You can find us on Guard SF and all those other websites. But no, thanks for having us out here, man. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. And also, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.